Hello again, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition of This Week in Wrestling. This Week in History, actually, I should say. It is Thursday, it is noontime, and we hope we're filling your week with wrestling knowledge and history. And we want to remind everybody that we are available right now on YouTube and Facebook, and of course, we'll be available later on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and everywhere else you get your podcasts from. We are part of the Ontario Independent Podcast Network here in Ontario, Canada, and the Johners Podcasting Network over in the UK. We're proud members of the 30 plus shows that you can get each and every day over at Johners. There's a lot of variety and something for everybody there. We are also brought to you by our friends over at CoolBet. CoolBet, stay cool, bet responsibly. And they are the sponsors of all our shows and also this championship belt that you can win by being a part of the Scumbags Prediction League. We have done a few events already, from WWE being WrestleMania and Impact Wrestling with Rebellion. And of course, coming up is going to be WWE Backlash and of course Double or Nothing. So we got more things coming up in the month of May. And as I said, this is episode number 20, and we are looking at the week of April 30th to May 6th. But we can't do that until we bring in the guy who brings us all on one massive file for me. Jonesy, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I think of myself as a narrator.
Yes, you can help us go through this history and remember the good and the bad, and sometimes the cringeworthy. And of course, along the way, we stop and add in some extra tidbits and memories of our own with the things that do come up. But definitely would not have happen without you spending time to compile it all.
Well, this week actually would be twice as long if we didn't take out about half of the things that happened within the week. So I kept in more of the important stuff. Even some more depressing stuff has been taken out. I'm trying to think of nothing huge, but and then a lot of the matchups I also took out as well to fit this all in. And in another couple of weeks, got another one that's a little longer than what this one originally was. So
that's all good. Like you said, it's a rich history of professional wrestling, and it'd be nice if people remembered a lot of the history and maybe even reinvented it or brought it back in a way into a modern day instead of some of the stuff that we're seeing right now. There's always a way of freshening up history and making it new with different characters there. So,
and some of these events that I go through, they make me go back and watch some of these matches, like WCW's Wrestle War from '91. I was watching today because of the matches that were listed in it, and it was like, holy crap, that's a big stacked card. So it's worthwhile going back and watching some of this.
Yeah, and to see some of the people who were where they were beforehand, I think I'm not sure who I had a conversation with. Steve Austin is one person who people know as the beer swinging, middle finger waving redneck in WWE that kicked ass all over the place, and even his boss. But to go even to just back a couple of years before that to WCW, where he was having tremendous matches with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and teaming with Brian Pillman, and to see he was a technician and not a brawler.
And a pretty boy.
True, with the long hair at the time and the rhinestones and everything. So totally different things, and being able to go back and check this stuff out is really an asset that thankfully has not gone by the wayside.
Yes. All right. Here we go.
Well, let's dive in.
Yes, let's dive in. April 30th, 44 years ago in Baltimore, Bruno Sammartino ends his second run as WWF champion, losing to superstar Billy Graham. Even though Graham had his feet on the rope, the ref would count the 1, 2, 3. Graham, however, would lose his title the next February in a similar way when Backlund's feet were on the ropes when he wins the title.
Karma.
34. Sorry?
Karma.
Yeah, it's karma. 34 years ago in Greensboro, Greg Valentine defeated Rowdy Roddy Piper to win the NWA United States Championship. 28 years ago, Triple A presented the first ever Triple Mania from Mexico. Triple Mania is Mexico's WrestleMania with over 48,000 in attendance. Some of the stars that appeared also on the show were Mysterio and Rey Mysterio Jr., Octagon, El Hijo del Santo, Feroza Guerrera, and a name that keeps coming up in Mexico is Heavy Metal. He wrestled a lot down in Mexico. Matches that aired on that pay-per-view. Pero Aguero defeated Mascara Eno 2000. 2-1 in a best-of-3 falls hair versus mask match. As a result of the loss, Mascara Eno 2000 was forced to unmask. Oh my. Sin Cara's defeated Conan 2-0 in a best-of-3s fall retirement match. Conan would be forced to retire only for a short time, of course. Jake the Snake Roberts interfered in the deciding fall, causing Conan to be counted out.
Shenanigans.
23 years ago in Augusta, Georgia, Chris Benoit defeated Booker T to win the WCW World Television Championship. For the next 4 days, the belt would change hands, ending with Fit Finlay holding the title. 18 years ago at an NWA TNA weekly pay-per-view taping in Nashville, Tennessee, the Amazing Red defeated Kid Cash to win the TNA X Division Championship. 15 years ago, WWE presented Backlash 2006 from Kentucky. Umaga defeated Ric Flair. Trish Stratus defeated Mickie James by DQ in a WWE Women's Championship match. RVD defeated Shelton Benjamin to win the WWE IC belt, and Van Dam's Money in the Bank contract was also at stake in the match. Vince McMahon and Shane McMahon defeated Shawn Michaels and God in a no-holds-barred match, and John Cena defeated Triple H and Edge in a triple threat match to retain the WWE Championship. Hey, you remember when God made an appearance?
Yeah, that was quite the way that they presented it, and the vignettes leading up to it, and Shane and Vince going to church, and then when God came out, it was just a spotlight coming down the aisle, and pushing the limits for some people. I don't think my wife would have definitely watched that, and not that she watches it at all, but she definitely would have been offended, as I'm pretty sure a lot of people were at that.
Well, there's definitely tons of the offensive things in wrestling that's happened over the years, but hey, it's wrestling.
Exactly.
11 years ago, TNA announces in a statement that they have fired Todd Clem, a.k.a. Bubba the Love Sponge. This came after the Sponge said some negative comments about a devastating earthquake in Haiti. Awesome Kong, who was raising money for the relief fund, would physically attack the Sponge at a TNA taping backstage. 10 years ago, Tommaso Ciampa defeated Adam Cole to win the East Coast Wrestling Association Super 8 tournament. Oh, that's back when he shaved. 9 years ago, he looks fantastic, but wow, does he look a lot older now.
Yeah,
9 years ago on Raw, Layla defeated Brie Bella and Nikki Bella in their last match for about a year in a triple threat match in just 11 seconds to retain the WWE Divas Championship. And Kofi Kingston and R-Truth defeated Epico and Primo to win the WWE Tag Team Championship. And yeah, as I was saying, Tommaso Ciampa, he looks older but scarier now. All right, moving on to May 1st. 34 years ago in Uniondale, New York, Ricky Steamboat retained his WWF IC belt by defeating Randy Savage in a steel cage match. And there they are up in the corner. Back when the cages looked a little more dangerous. 23 years ago, All Japan Pro Wrestling presented its first solo wrestling show at the Tokyo Dome, Showdown at the Egg. A record 58,300 were in attendance for the event, the biggest show in company history. Did you know this was the first time All Japan ran an event at the Tokyo Dome on their own? All of the previous events at the Tokyo Dome were done with other promotions.
Yeah, kind of crazy. Just want to go back to a couple of ones that I know you blotted out, but definitely worth looking at. So, like 40 years ago in Georgia, Harley Race regained the NWA World Title after defeating Tommy Rich, who won it only 4 days prior to that. I believe we mentioned that on the last show. And of course, Gene and Ole Anderson defeated Paul Jones and the Masked Superstar to win the NWA World Tag Team titles for their eighth and final time. This is before Arn got in there and replaced Gene to be Ole's tag team partner, and starting with the Horsemen. And of course, the other one that I wanted to bring up was that at an NWA taping in Alabama 30 years ago, Paul Heyman would return for his second run in the company. Heyman, as Paul E. Dangerously, would form the Dangerous Alliance and would double as a broadcaster for NWA WCW telecast until his firing in 92. And that was a time when Jim Ross and him actually were commentating on a couple of the shows. So when Paul E had to step in when the King quit before WrestleMania 17, it was almost like they fell into old times between Heyman and JR for that. And then you see this version of Paul Heyman with the Zach Morris uh, cell phone there that's the brick, and then the way he's dressed and everything, he's almost looking like Michael Keaton. And that's, I believe, how he got the Dangerously name from the Michael Keaton movie where he played Dangerously.
Hmm. And he's got pretty much a full set of hair there.
Yes.
Now, sad news. 18 years ago, the world stopped for a moment when we heard the news that Elizabeth Houlette, aka Miss Elizabeth, died of acute toxicity in Marietta, Georgia. She was 42. Fizz was born November 19th, 1960, in Frankfort, Kentucky. Houlette, fresh out of the University of Kentucky with a degree in communications, she would meet Macho Man Randy Savage while working for international championship wrestling shows. The couple married in December 1984, and she would make her WWF debut the following summer as the manager of the Macho Man. Further in her career, following the end of her WCW run, she worked the front desk at Main Event Fitness, a gym Luger and Sting opened together. Just weeks before her death, Elizabeth was involved in a domestic dispute with Luger, alleging that he struck her at their home. Luger would be charged with misdemeanor battery and released on $2,500 bond. Then 2 days later, Luger was arrested for DUI after rear-ending another car. On May 1st, 2003, Luger called 911 and reported Houlette was not breathing. She would be rushed to hospital where she was pronounced dead. As reported in the Marietta Daily Journal, her death would be ruled an accidental overdose as she had 0.29 alcohol level, which is more than triple the legal limit to drive in Georgia. Luger would be charged with 13 felony counts of distribution of dangerous drugs. He would be released on $27,500 bail and would plead guilty and receive a fine of $1,000 in 5 years probation.
That's kind of pathetic, $1,000 in 5 years probation. But yeah, I got one thing up here with Elizabeth, with Randy and Luger and the Mega Powers and the wedding photo from SummerSlam, and when Randy won the title at WrestleMania 4. Of course, in the middle is her tombstone that's uh, commemorating her life. But yeah, it's just a shame. And to see how she ended up getting into wrestling, where I love the story where Randy Savage was coming into the WWE or WWF, and every manager was trying to get his services. And next thing you know, he brought out Elizabeth, and people were like, "Who's this?" And she was obviously great eye candy for that got tied up in the whole George Steele obsession type deal. But she really wasn't a manager that interfered at all, unlike Bobby Heenan and those type of managers. But she was smart enough. She went and got Hogan to get help and formed the Mega Powers, managed them for a while. It's just odd that, unfortunately, with how possessive Randy was of Elizabeth, that possibly that was the suffocating uh, feeling in their relationship that caused for their divorce. Of course, if you were ever to ask Randy Savage, he was also going to be blaming Terry and Linda Bollea, Hogan and his wife, uh, over the splitting and stuff like that. And there's rumors that Elizabeth walked out on Savage and Hogan showed up with the black eye at WrestleMania due to Savage punching him. Uh, but it was a ski accident, uh, apparently. But then I said to you off air when I had this other picture with all the different looks of Miss Elizabeth, she definitely embraced the 90s look when you look at the bottom three pictures on the right hand side during her time in WCW. And she had actually was brought back in by Hogan and Savage because she still had a good relationship with Randy even after their divorce. And she was married to, I believe, or at least in a relationship with somebody who was definitely far away from the wrestling business. I believe he was either in banking or real estate. I'm not sure which, but it's one of those type of careers. And that got brought back into wrestling with WCW thanks to her relationship still with Savage. Obviously, her other relationship failed, and she ended up hooking up with Luger. And I still don't forgive Lex Luger to this day for what all happened to lead her down that path where she was doing drugs like that to an overdose thing. But I mentioned you looking at the looks here once again, how WWE presented her as the first lady, and she came out presented so elegantly in these dresses. Even the shot with her at a ranch in Kentucky, like so really sophisticated. And then WCW in the 90s, totally different vibe of how they presented her or she presented herself compared to her WWE incarnations. Your thoughts, Chris?
I think it was the Ric Flair pictures that really was the downturn. And yeah, Elizabeth is beautiful and all, but she was great for storyline advancements for Macho Man. But all in all, I found her to be useless and annoying as shit.
Oh,
I much rather a Luna Vachon or a Scary Sherry over Miss Elizabeth's. Like, she pretty much didn't do anything.
like I said, she was wonderful eye candy, and when that's the one thing that attracted me to starting watching wrestling was Randy Savage, and then Elizabeth, obviously as the full package of the two as a couple, and that actually got my family watching as well, so I didn't have to try and watch it at different times, and when they were available, I was able to start watching religiously thanks to their story. But let's carry
All
on.
right. Moving on from Elizabeth to 16 years ago, WWE presented Backlash. Shelton Benjamin defeated Chris Jericho to retain the WWE IC belt. Rosie and the Hurricane defeated Tajiri and William Regal. The Heartthrobs, which were Antonio and Romeo, Simon Dean and Maven, and the team of La Resistance, Rob Conway and Sylvain Grenier, in a tag team turmoil match to win the World Tag Team Championship. And Hogan and Shawn Michaels defeated Mohammed Hussein and Daivari, and the main event saw Batista defeating Triple H to retain the World Heavyweight Championship. 14 years ago, Tough Enough 3 winner Matt Capotelli underwent surgery in Boston, Massachusetts, to remove a malignant brain tumor. Though the surgery was a success, the former OVW champion would never wrestle again. He would become a trainer for OVW's beginner program. In May of 2018, Capotelli would cease medical interventions for the tumor. He died on June 29th, 2018, at the age of 38.
And to think he was part of that class with the co-winner of John Hannigan, who we now know as Johnny Morrison, or Johnny Nitro Morrison, Impact, you name it, he was it, and is currently, John Morrison on WWE right now.
10 years ago, WWE presented Extreme Rules. Some of the matches on that show, Kofi Kingston defeated Sheamus in a tables match to win the WWE United States Championship. Michael Cole and Jack Swagger defeated Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler in a piece of crap country whipping match. Moving on, we've got Christian defeated Alberto Del Rio in a ladder match to win the vacated World Heavyweight Championship. The Big Show and Kane defeated Wade Barrett and Ezekiel Jackson in a lumberjack match to win the WWE Tag Team Championship. And John Cena defeated The Miz and John Morrison in a triple threat steel cage match to win the WWE Championship. May 2nd, 27 years ago, at a WCW night taping, Larry Zbyszko defeated Lord Steven Regal to win the WCW World Television Championship. This episode wouldn't air for almost a month. 27 years ago, at a Smoky Mountain Wrestling TV taping in Tennessee, Jake the Snake Roberts defeated the Dirty White Boy, Tony Anthony, to win the SMW Heavyweight Championship. After this match aired 12 days later, it would be the last appearance for Roberts, as he disappeared from the company, no showing many events. The title would be given back to the Dirty White Boy.
And for those unfamiliar with Dirty White Boy and our longtime WWE watchers, Dirty White Boy became TL Hopper. Plumber.
Yes. He actually looked familiar there. I'm like, I've seen him before. 25 years ago, at a worldwide WCW taping, Dean Malenko defeated Shinjiro Otani to win the WCW Cruiserweight Championship. This would be the final time a belt changed hands on Worldwide, and the only time the Cruiserweight belt changed hands on that show. 29 years ago, at a SmackDown taping in Virginia, Chris Jericho defeated Chris Benoit to win the WWF IC belt. 18 years ago, in Tokyo, Japan, Yoshiro Takayama defeated Yuji Nagata to retain the NWF Heavyweight Championship and won the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. And today would have been the 58th birthday of Ray Washington Traylor, a.k.a. Big Bubba Rogers, or the Big Boss Man, or the Boss. How about the Guardian Angel? And, of course, just Big Boss Man. He was born in Dallas, Texas, was a prison guard in Marietta, Georgia. He began working in the Jim Crockett Promotions as an enhancement talent until head booker Dusty Rhodes saw potential in Traylor. He would be repackaged as Big Bubba Rogers, a silent but violent bodyguard for Jim Cornette. He would even go to the WWF repackaged as the Big Boss Man, and the rest, of course, is history. On September 22nd, 2004, Traylor died of a heart attack while his sister was visiting him. He was just 41. Traylor was posthumously inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame.
Well, honestly to say, I was a huge fan of Boss Man from the moment he came in as the prison guard boss man gimmick, even though he was a heel with Slick. I just there was something that obviously wanting to be a cop was one thing for myself, but yeah, I just seemed to like his look and being able to play that sort of character and to see also how fat he was and dropped weight over the years. It
Mhm.
was pretty cool.
I definitely think he should add more gold around his waist.
Oh yeah.
May 3rd, 29 years ago in Chicago, the Steiner brothers defeated Arn Anderson and Bobby Eaton to win the WCW World Tag Team Championship. 28 years ago at NJPW Wrestling Don Taku 93 in Japan, WWF champion Hulk Hogan defeated IWGP champion The Great Muta in a non-title match. Hogan got in some hot water after the pre-match interview where he claimed that the IWGP title was the only one he wanted and the WWF title was just a toy. Bastard. 25 years ago, Carl Ray Stevens died in his home of a heart attack in Fremont, California. He was 60 years old. Born September 5th, 1935 in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, Stevens wrestled from the age of 15. His first major championship win came in August 59 after winning the NWA World Tag Belt as the Shire Brothers. He would start using his real name and became a bumper. He is said to have invented the turnbuckle flip, and his finisher was called Bombs Away, which was a top rope knee drop to the throat. He would hold the NWA US belt 9 times from 1960 through 1970. He would also hold the NWA tag belts in 1965, with Pat Patterson calling themselves the Blonde Bombers. He would continue to hold more titles, including the AWA tag belts 3 times with Nick Bockwinkel and Patterson, and 3 more NWA tag belts. In 71, Stevens would work in the WWF with Classy Freddie Blassie as Crippler Steve Williams. His time would be short there as 30 years of the road and the wrestling landscape changing would take a toll on him. He would return to the AWA and retire in 92. He would pass away in 96 at the age of 60.
Yeah, just to think, you read there that in '71 he was working with Blassie in the WWF as Crippler Steve Williams. So that means the wrestling world has seen 3 guys going by the name of Steve Williams, or at
Yes.
least 2 legitimately known as Steve Williams by birth, being Steve Austin and Dr. Death, and a play version of Steve Williams in
Mhm.
uh, Ray Stevens.
And of course, that was with the WWF. I didn't put enough W's in that one.
Yeah.
23 years ago at a WWF house show in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, Adam Copeland defeated Christian Cage in what was Cage's first WWF match.
Yeah, I
23.
remember them. We saw them in the Western Fair here with the Hart Brothers School during a Western Fair, and they
Yes.
were the Suicide Blondes, Sexton Hardcastle, and Christian Cage at the time, and I think their opponents that were scheduled to be against them that day didn't show up, so they ended up splitting them and have them face each other, and people were more behind Sexton Hardcastle than Cage. They were calling Cage ugly and everything. And then I know remember running into them uh, just around Survivor Series time at a house show at actually yeah, it was a house show 2 days before the Montreal Screwjob. Now that I think of it, and they were using a payphone in the lobby of the Skydome Hotel, and I was just like, "Were you guys just recently in London?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah," and talked just for a very brief time, but they had just gotten their tryouts and stuff like that as part of that show in Toronto.
If I can ever dig up that card, I kept it. I can't remember where I put it. I want to say that was the same year that Leanne Rhymes was actually at the Western Fair, which would be the 96. Is what I want to say. I could be totally wrong on that. But there was another wrestler that made it to the WWF also on that card. I believe Snitsky was on that show as well.
Yeah, that was their champion, I think. What was it? Iron Spartan? No, not Iron Spartan. That's somebody else.
That
But
is
yeah,
one thing I do want to do. I want to do some research and see all the different cards that have been in London over the time, because the fair did have some wrestling cards back in the 90s and in the 80s. I remember my father taking me there. It was one of the first times I really was at a live wrestling show, and they had women's mud wrestling on the grandstand back then. So
wow.
that was neat to see. And I seen Captain America. Of course, it wasn't the real Captain America, or it was Mr. America. It was one of the two. Moving on, 23 years ago, ECW presented WrestlePalooza 98 on enemy turf. This would be the last public appearance of the Junkyard Dog. Prior to the event, a Legends ceremony was held honoring Dick Slater, Bob Armstrong, the Assassin, and the Dog. Shane Douglas defeated Al Snow to retain the ECW World Heavyweight Championship. It was the final ECW appearance for Snow, as he would return to the WWF that summer. 10 years ago at a SmackDown taping in Orlando, only 2 days after winning the World Heavyweight Championship, Christian would drop the title to Randy Orton. Today marks the birthday of Stuart Edward Hart, a.k.a. Stu Hart. And look at him there, holy crap. Born in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada, Stu would compete in amateur wrestling around the age of 14. After joining the Edmonton YMCA, learning the style of catch wrestling, winning many competitions and medals. He would play for the Edmonton Eskimos for 2 years, enlist in the Canadian Navy, and serve as the director of athletics. It was during this time he was introduced to pro wrestling. Of course, the rest is history. He would wrestle a tiger and a bear, open Stampede Wrestling, and for decades would torture young and upcoming wrestlers in his dungeon at his home. Thank you, Stu, for molding so many superstars. Stu was a longtime supporter and mentor of the Calgary community, as he supported more than 30 charities and civic organizations. He was married for 53 years to American-born Helen Smith. The couple would have 12 children, many of whom would have some involvement in the business. He would die of a stroke and would be posthumously inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2010, and is a member of the first Wrestling Observer newsletter Hall of Fame class, being in 1996.
So yeah, basically he populated the city of Edmonton.
Yes, he did.
Between him and Helen, with all the children that they had, and then spawning off everybody else getting married to different wrestlers or people in the city to help populate Edmonton. And to think that the dungeon basically has a origins of the YMCA. And actually, I should stand corrected that he didn't populate just Edmonton, he populated Calgary, since that's where they ended up settling down. But learning in Edmonton is what it popped out. But to think that the dungeon is basically origin from a YMCA, never would have thought that.
No, but I bet you his mats were cleaner than the YMCA's.
Probably.
And hey, I took many years of judo wrestling lessons in YMCA. May 4th, 19 years ago, WWF presented its last show under the WWF banner, Insurrection, from Wembley Stadium Arena in London, England. Booker T defeated Stevie Richards to win the WWF Hardcore Championship, only to lose it to Crash Holly, who loses it to Booker, who loses it to Steven Richards. The Hardy Boys defeated Brock Lesnar and Shawn Stasiak. Stone Cold Steve Austin defeated The Big Show. Ric Flair was the special enforcer. And Triple H defeated The Undertaker. 17 years ago at a SmackDown taping in Tucson, Jacqueline defeated Chavo Guerrero to win the WWE Cruiserweight Championship. She would be the only woman to hold the belt in the WWE. The same belt, however, in WCW was held by two women, Medusa and Daphne. 7 years ago, WWE presented Extreme Rules. Alexander Rusev defeated R-Truth and Xavier Woods in a 2-on-1 handicap match. Bad News Barrett defeated Big E to win the WWE Intercontinental Championship. Bray Wyatt defeated John Cena in a steel cage match. And Daniel Bryan defeated Kane in an Extreme Rules match to retain the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. 6 years ago on Raw from Montreal, Quebec, Canada, former NXT champion Sami Zayn makes his WWE main roster debut as the latest mystery challenger in the John Cena United States Open Challenge. And today would have been the 87th birthday of Harry Masayoshi Fujiwara, aka the Devious One, Mr. Fuji. Fuji, of course, would become a legendary heel manager, helping his wrestlers win by distraction by either throwing salt in their eyes or whacking the opponent with his cane, of course. The list of men he managed is long, including George the Animal Steele, his first charge, Don Morocco, Jim Neidhart, Demolition, and the Powers of Pain, and former WWF champion, the mighty Yokozuna, and so many more. Post-wrestling career, Fujiwara lived in Knoxville, Tennessee, operated a wrestling school for a short time, and was part-time usher at a Knoxville movie theater. Believe it or not, Fuji was voted Wrestling Observer's Newsletter's Worst Manager of the Year award 11 of 12 years from 1984 to 1995. Paul Jones was the only other winner in that span, getting the honor in 86. I think that the Wrestling Observer can go fuck off on that one. Fujiwara was... Sorry?
It is Dave Meltzer's opinion only. And, well, I can almost see it, but there's got to be worse managers than Fuji. He was, even though he didn't lead people many to tag team or many titles, did lead Demolition to titles and also Yokozuna. But yeah, this is Dave Meltzer and company, and the guy
I just don't understand it. He personally, I think he's one of the better ones. He was what a manager was supposed to be: stand on the outside, be a little bit animated. He had his stick, he had his salt. He was a true manager, in my opinion, because he actually wrestled, and he had a great career, especially in tag team wrestling. So I don't know, Dave Meltzer.
Exactly.
And of course, Fujiwara was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2007 by his Fuji Vice co-star, Don Morocco. On August 28, 2016, Fujiwara passed away in Clarksville, Tennessee. He was 82. He had 7 children, 13 grandchildren, and 5 great-grandchildren. May 5th, 116 years ago in New York, George Hackenschmidt, the World Greco-Roman Wrestling Champion, defeated Tom Jenkins, American Heavyweight Champion, 2-0 in a best-of-3 falls match to become the World Catch-as-Catch-Can Heavyweight Champion. 37 years ago in Greensboro, North Carolina, Wahoo McDaniel and Mark Youngblood defeated Jack and Jerry Briscoe to win the NWA World Tag Team Championship. 19 years ago, World Wrestling Federation Entertainment becomes World Wrestling Entertainment, Inc. Just days after the Court of Appeal for England and Wales upheld a October 2001 ruling alleging that the WWF was in breach of an agreement with the World Wildlife Fund. This would lead to the annoying blur of the old logo in classic matches from years to come. Get the F out. I thought that was a great campaign slogan. They're geniuses sometimes over there, I'll tell you.
Yeah, and just to think that I think the violation that the WD had with the WWF, like Wildlife Fund, stemmed for mostly the Wildlife Fund thinking that, oh, people are getting confused between you and us, and when people search for us, they're getting you guys, and so we're not getting our just due for people donating and stuff like that. And it's like, I'm pretty sure people understand if they want to support a panda bear and all the different animals that they support, they're going to find them and not find the wrestling thing. And what probably perpetuated it the most, I would say, was I could be totally wrong, was the explosion of the internet. And so people searching, putting in WWF, were obviously getting wrestling over the Wildlife Fund, and because of that, that's why they pursued the letters and all that, and cost Mr. McMahon a whole lot of money to the fact that he just threw his hands up in the air and said enough is enough, and you want the letters, will be World Wrestling Entertainment.
And many Fs around the world were out of job.
Yep.
19 years ago, the plane ride from hell happened. A number of WWE personnel got in hot water as a result of a series of incidents that happened on the flight back from London for the Insurrection pay-per-view. Sean, if you'd like to go down on that, I'm going to refill up on water.
Okay, so yeah, this actually is going to be part of a Dark Side of the Ring episode this season 3. I think it's around episode number 8-ish. I don't have the list in front of me at the moment, but yeah, some of the shenanigans that happened on the flight included Michael Hayes and John Bradshaw Layfield getting into a fight. X-Pac cutting off Michael Hayes' ponytail, Scott Hall passing out from drinking too much, Ric Flair walking around the plane wearing nothing more than his robe and exposing himself to a female flight attendant, and
Woo!
I think it was either going to be Stephanie or Linda that also were going to be a victim of Rick's Space Mountain exposure. Dustin Rhodes, Goldust got on the PA system and badly attempted to serenade his ex-wife Terry because she was on that flight too. Kurt Hennig and Brock Lesnar got into an impromptu wrestling match on the plane and got real close to the door to eject people. Jim Ross, who was on the plane, released a statement summing up as a 7-hour flight low-lighted by children whose parents were away and left the liquor cabinet unlocked. The fallout would see Scott Hall released Goldust in the doghouse until he left the company. Don't worry, folks, he came back multiple times. Um, Hennig was fired, and 2 flight attendants sued WD Ric Flair, Scott Hall, and Goldust for sexual harassment that would be settled outside of the court system. And so, as I said, this is an infamous plane ride from hell that is going to be covered on season 3 of Dark Side of the Ring. You can see that on
Fantastic.
Vice or Crave.
All right, 19 years ago, Randall Anderson, best known as WCW referee Randy Anderson, died of testicular cancer in his hometown of Rome, Georgia. He was 42. Anderson was a state wrestling champion at 119 pounds in Georgia. Began his refereeing career for Mid South Wrestling in 78 and NWA affiliate Jim Crockett Promotions in 1985. And of course, WCW. Randy was the ref for the 6-man tag at Bash at the Beach that ended up with the formation of the NWO. In fact, he'd ref that match while battling testicular cancer. He would leave for medical treatment, and in 99, he had to retire due to his battle with cancer. He would die on May 5th, 2002, at age 42. He had a wife, daughter, and son who all appeared on Nitro with him when he battled for his job after being kayfabe fired.
Yeah, that was quite the thing that happened with that because he was being fired on TV as part of a storyline to get him out of there to be able to deal with his issues medically. But people in his hometown did not get that fact of wrestling and it's TV show and not overly real in certain aspects, and they actually petitioned for him to get his job back, and he even brought his kids, as said in that write up that you have, and there's a video of it with him and his kids pleading for their dad to get their job back, and Eric calls them over and gets their names and then laughs in their face that nope, he's still fired. But yeah, just the backlash that came through all that did cause WCW to have to retract a couple things and scramble to smooth things over with fans of Randy Anderson and get him back on TV as soon as he was healthy enough.
Some people just shouldn't watch TV. 7 years ago on Raw from Albany, New York, Sheamus last eliminates Dean Ambrose to win the 20-man Battle Royal in the WWE United States Championship. This would end Ambrose's 351-day run as champion. And it's a happy 82nd birthday to William F. Watts Jr., aka Bill Watts. May 6th, 19 years ago on WWE Raw, the organization gets the F out and begins a whole new era. All the archive footage would have the F blurred out. Even the signs in the crowd that had the F were gone. William Regal defeated Spike Dudley via submission in just 36 seconds to win the WWE European Championship. Also on the show, we saw the hardcore belt do the hot potato. Bubba Ray Dudley wins the WWE Hardcore Championship from Steven Richards, loses it to Raven, who loses it to Justin Credible, who loses it to Crash Holly, who loses it to Trish Stratus, and of course loses it to Steven Richards, who began the evening as the champion. Yuck. 12 years ago at NJPW Dissidents in Tokyo, Japan, Manabu Nakanashi defeated Hiroshi Tanahashi to win the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. Is he taking a shit in the ring there? Look at his face. Wow.
Yeah.
5 years ago, WWE does some housekeeping, letting go 8 of its roster members. Those included Hornswoggle, Alex Riley, Zeb Coulter, El Torito, Cameron, Santino Marella, Wade Barrett, and Damian Sandow. And it's a happy... Go ahead.
A couple of these guys I'd love to see back. Wade Barrett is back. Of course, Dirty Dutch is working, I think, with... not sure if it's Impact or AEW behind the scenes. Riley, didn't care much for. Hornswoggle just actually had a boxing match and lost. Santino, he's recently sold his Battle Arts Academy with Hamilton Wrestling Entertainment here in Ontario, and he's moved over to the Bruce Peninsula, but still partnering with Hamilton Wrestling and Entertainment and running Battle Arts instead of fully selling. But yeah, and then of course there is Damian Sandow, who is Aaron Stevens or Aaron Rex. I'm not sure which he's going by at the moment over in the NWA. But he was a talent that I thought could have stayed a lot longer and did better for himself.
And El Torito, I believe, they made him in the glue.
Yeah, probably. As soon as you got rid of one little person, they got to get rid of both of them unless you hire another person.
Yep. It's a happy... Hey, yeah, wait a minute. Now, you think 25% of those people that were fired were midgets. It's a happy 33rd birthday for Sherry Crowley, a.k.a. Evie. Crowley was born in Ucklin, Germany, May 6, 1988, and is of Samoan and Irish descent. She wrestled under the name Evie and appeared for Impact Pro, Shimmer, Shine, and PWA in Australia. She is currently with the WWF under the name Dakota Kai and was one half of the inaugural NXT Women's Tag Team Champions alongside Raquel Gonzalez. It's a happy 37th birthday for Kevin Yannick Steen, aka Kevin Owens. Steen is just the second performer in WWE history to appear on every pay-per-view in their first year on the roster. The first to do it was The Undertaker. And it's a happy 41st birthday for Scott Colton, aka Scott the Goldman, Matt Classic, or currently as Colt Cabana. And that is it for this week in under an hour. That's pretty good. This week in wrestling, of course, this week in wrestling history, we're skipping the history part, I don't know why, is compiled from the vast land of Google, Wikipedia, CageSideSeats.com, and most importantly, from journalists and fans like you that had front row seats to history.
Yeah, so thank you once again for doing that. We did say we're stockpiling a couple of these ahead of time because you are switching locations in Niagara Falls. So we hope to get possibly another one in the can before your move. But yeah, want to thank you for putting this together and remind everybody that we are sponsored by CoolBet. And you need to stay cool, bet responsibly, and be a part of the Scumbags Prediction League, where we do predictions for WWE, NXT, AEW, and Impact pay-per-views now through next March, where somebody's going to walk away with this championship belt if they have the most points of the year for all the predictions. And of course, you can earn points by picking the winners of the events. 10 points for a win, 5 for a draw, and 0 for a loss. We're going to have bonus points in there. And there's 2 levels, free, where you just get to have fun and bragging rights, and maybe win a prize here or there along the way. And the pro side of things, for $25, you can be with us for the whole year and have a chance at this championship belt. Just want to remind people also that we are on Pro Wrestling Tees at prowrestlingtees.com/scumbagswrestling, and the 3 logo shirts that you find throughout April and May. Proceeds will go to Jordito's recovery. He's a 7-year-old little guy here in the London area who is recovering from cancer. And of course, there are Ontario Indie comic book style that you can see on the second shirt in the logo is going to Steven's Wrestling Journey. Steven Spice is a 9-year-old little guy who is battling Curie malformation, and they're doing research for that at Children's Hospital in Toronto. And proceeds from that shirt will go and help with the research there. So there's always a way you can get Scumbags material and help out a great cause. So those are the things I need to plug. We are also doing Fantasy Warfare Tournament and our regular podcast Thursdays, unless something major comes up at 8 o'clock. Fantasy Warfare Wednesdays at 6. Anything you want to plug, though, Chris?
No, not really. I can't wait to start doing some betting on Cool Bets as soon as we get the codes and go from there. I'm interested in see what else they have online besides the poker games and all that, and give that a go, and I'll give you all feedback on it.
Yeah, and as Chris was saying, very shortly we're going to get everything fully rolling out with our deal with CoolBet. When this all came about, it was also year end for them. So, business has to come first over this fun. But once we get everything settled, we're going to have our code, and you can find out how you can bet safely and responsibly on their website, whether it is gaming tables like poker or things like soccer and other sports that they cover. So I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us, and we'll see you on one of our next shows. Have a good one.